Is God stretching your faith? Is he stretching your ability to persevere and endure to achieve the dream, the goal, the calling that you have on your life? Like, God, if you stretch me anymore, I just might snap in half. I'm not elastic, girl. I don't bend all the ways and stretch for infinity. I'm going to break down what it actually takes to go to the next level with your faith and with accomplishing anything big, like growing a successful ministry or business, or like Michael Blaine, holding your breath for 17 minutes underwater on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Because maybe you want to do that someday. Find out how the heck he actually did that and what he says magic actually is. And find out what God told me like 5 minutes after he highlighted a girl at Chipotle with gauged ears. Stretched, gauged ears. What? Hey there, my friend. Jenna Dexter here, Christian life and mindset coach for women. And this is Total Thrive. This is where you are empowered to confidently achieve a thriving and purpose-filled life. Many of the Christian women that I know have God-sized dreams, goals, calling, vision. And they need God-sized faith to keep believing in the vision that God gave them. And they need to know what to actually do to achieve that dream, goal, or calling. If you're watching this right now, there's a good chance that you are that woman. And maybe at some level, you are already doing the thing. You're taking the steps, and in many ways, you're already doing the thing that you feel called to. But you know that there's another level. Like you may be down here and you know that there's an up here. And it feels like a snail's pace to get to that level. And you're exhausted physically, mentally, and maybe spiritually, and wondering what you can possibly do differently or better to speed things up. Let's just get on with it. God, when is this thing going to happen? When are we going to get to this level? When is the breakthrough going to come? On April 30th, 2008, David Blaine held his breath for 17 minutes and 4 seconds underwater in this big giant water tank on the Oprah Winfrey Show. David Blaine is a magician who had pulled off several crazy stunts. He was buried alive for 7 days in a coffin. That sounds like so much fun. He went without food for 44 days while encased in a plastic box that was suspended by a crane in London. And he caught a .22 caliber bullet in his mouth. But how the heck did he hold his breath for that long? 17 minutes and 4 seconds. I think it's like 30 seconds is like the longest the average person can actually hold their breath. So like 17 minutes is crazy. Well, in order to do it, he went through all kinds of craziness. But part of what he did was every morning for many months, he began by holding his breath for 44 out of the first 52 minutes of the day with brief breaths interspersed. The oxygen deprivation caused awful headaches, but he kept pushing his limits day after day. He lost 50 pounds in 3 months to increase his lung capacity. And that's just one small part of what he describes in his TED Talk titled, How I Held My Breath for 17 Minutes. But it was in this TED Talk that he revealed the secret behind his magic. As a magician, I try to show things to people that seem impossible. And I think magic, whether I'm holding my breath or shuffling a deck of cards, is pretty simple. It's practice, it's training, and it's in that moment, David actually started to cry on stage. He was so caught up in the emotion of what he was saying, and it wasn't an act. And then he went on to say, it's practice, it's training, and it's experimenting while pushing through the pain to be the best that I can be. And that's what magic is to me. David got creative. He researched, he practiced, he trained, he tried things. He failed at things and he got back up and kept trying. He experienced a boatload of pain, and he kept going on his way to achieving the thing that seemed impossible to everyone else. So let's break down the 4 things that he said was magic to him. He said practice. In order to achieve anything, it takes dedicated, consistent practice. The more reps you do, the better you get, and the more effortless it becomes. He said training. Training is where you learn what to practice and how to practice it. Training is where you learn the better way to do the thing. Olympic swimmers didn't just do more breaststrokes. In training, they learned how to change the way that they were doing a breaststroke. He said experimenting, and that means an unknown outcome. Experimenting is trying something, knowing it might not work, and being okay with that. You have to be okay at failing. In fact, if you want to be the best at something, you might need to be prepared to fail more than anyone else. Also, sometimes trying something isn't a matter of if you succeed at it or fail at it. It's like trying something out to see if it's the right fit, if it's the right thing for you. You might find something that works and decide that it's just not for you. It's just not the way you want to spend your time or your energy. It doesn't light you up to do it this way. I tried it. It's not for me. I didn't fail at it. I just know now that that's not what I want to do. So let's try something else. But David Blaine tried a lot of things on his way to holding his breath for 17 minutes that didn't work, that, quote, failed. But he learned from it and he tried something else. And then the fourth thing that he said that magic was to him was pushing through the pain. This is something that I want to focus on right now, pushing through the pain. If you watch his TED Talk, you'll find out about the literal physical pain that he put himself through while training and while holding his breath that 17 minutes. That was like his heart was doing ridiculous things. He could feel it in his chest and he just pushed through. Maybe it was stupid on his part. I don't know. He had medical professionals standing by ready to pull him out at a moment's notice and resuscitate him. And I don't really recommend that you go to that extreme of a level in the pushing through your pain. And the point is, that's what got him to the level of success, is pushing through his pain. And I think that many times that when we're trying to achieve something and something is hard and it's painful and it takes a lot of persistence and endurance and our faith is being tested and we're just maybe with not even what we're supposed to be doing. And oh, I don't know if that's going to keep working if I keep trying this. But the point is, you might have to endure a lot of pain on your way to achieving your God sized goal, dream, or calling. In January, I did a 21-day Daniel fast. God has had me on a big faith journey for a long while now, and I was praying for direction and breakthrough in some big ways. And 7 days into that fast, I had what I call a God day, where I went on a little day trip and I fully expected God to show up and speak. And he did. He'd speak to me in pairs all day long. I would see something, hear something, something would be highlighted to me in some way. And then suddenly God was like repeating it and showing me that, yeah, I actually spoke that to you. And not only did I speak that to you, but this is what it means, in case you weren't sure. It was kind of crazy. Here's an example. So throughout that day, I was listening to a book by Annie F. Downs, Looking for Lovely. Now, in the last year, God has spoken through different books of hers that I've listened to. Like every single one of them, there's always something in it. And it's not necessarily like the overall theme of the book, but just something, a phrase that she says, or some little story she tells that's like, oh my gosh, that was what God said, or that's, something where God is speaking to me personally, and I just know it. So at lunchtime that day, I went to Chipotle because it was the only place I could think of that was like a fast food type restaurant where I could get basically a Daniel fast like meal. And while I'm in line and I'm waiting to check out, I'm noticing the gal at the checkout register and she has these gauged ears. Where it's not just an earring hole, it's like a very large hole for either a plug or a tunnel that goes into your ear. And hers were pretty big. They were about the size I'd say at least I could put my index finger through, if not bigger. And I was just very much noticing them and just thinking the commitment, wow, the commitment that you need to have to go through that process and to, your entire life, your ear is going to have this massive hole in it, right? And when you're 80 years old, still going to have the massive hole in it. And just thinking about it, just it was especially highlighted to me and I was noticing and that was that. And then I went and I sat down and I started eating and I turned my book back on in my ears, my AirPods. And I'm sitting there eating and I kid you not, it was within a couple of minutes of me sitting there that Annie starts saying, I had a friend early in high school who decided to turn his pierced ears into gauges. When people stretch the hole in their ears from simply holding an earring to holding wooden dowels of different sizes. Are you kidding me right now? What is this woman saying? What? Is she actually talking about ear gauges right now? Like, I was just over there thinking about this gal's ear gauges. Is that what they're called? Didn't remember what they were called. Okay, I guess ear gauges. And then I sit down and he's talking about ear gauges. And I'm like, hey God, I'm listening. So she goes on to say, I've never done it, but I've heard that it hurts like crazy each time you upgrade to the next size gauge. But it's for a purpose. The only way you can fully experience the next level is by experiencing some pain. The only way that you can experience the next level is by experiencing some pain. I knew in that moment that God was speaking that to me. So I'm on my Daniel fast. I'm on a day where I'm fully expecting and anticipating God to speak to me. And I 100% believe that He was speaking this to me. And for me, it applied in a few different ways, but one of them was simply my faith. My faith was being stretched, and it's been being stretched, and it's stretching, and it's stretching, and it's stretching, and it's still stretching. And I believe that while that day I was also praying for breakthrough, I believe that He was telling me, yeah, you're not going to get the breakthrough today. It's not going to happen today. There's more stretching that needs to happen, and it's going to be okay. But the stretching was also about enduring and persevering, the work that I'm doing to grow my business slash ministry, and all of the things that I'm doing with that, and like even just this YouTube channel and everything. It's like stretching, Jenna. You're stretching, and it's okay. Just keep stretching, keep enduring, keep persevering, and you're going to be okay. So if you're experiencing some pain from the faith, from the work, from the enduring and persevering that you might be going through right now, remember that it is for a purpose. And if your faith is being tested, meditate on James 1:3-4. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. Oh, yay, let my endurance grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. So, girl, you got to get yourself some endurance, and you got to get yourself some grit. Like, it takes grit to keep on keeping on sometimes, right? It takes grit to persevere, to keep enduring, to keep stretching. As Pastor Mark Batterson says, miracles happen at the place where our grit meets God's grace. I love that quote. That comes from the book that Mark Batterson wrote called Win the Day, 7 Daily Habits to Help You Stress Less and Accomplish More, which I've been reading one chapter at a time and talking about right here. I'll link it in the description if you want to check it out. But if you're praying for God to do His part in perhaps fulfilling your dream, your goal, your calling, remember that miracles happen at the place where grit meets God's grace. You need to do your part in co-laboring with Him. Keep allowing God to stretch you. Keep standing firm with grit and endurance and patience, and trust that in His perfect timing, the breakthrough will come. Mark's hypothesis that he weaves throughout the entire book is that almost anybody can accomplish almost anything if they work at it long enough, hard enough, and smart enough. But as I've mentioned before, he also says it doesn't just happen. Poof. It'll involve some early mornings and some late nights. It'll involve some blood, sweat, and tears. The good news, if you do the natural, it sets God up to do something super. This comes from chapter 6, the mundanity of excellence, which I talked about in the last video. The mundanity of excellence referring to the ordinary mundane things that we do consistently and repeatedly in order to achieve our goals. The more you do on a consistent basis, the things that you just are tired of doing. I just keep doing that. If I keep doing piano scales, will I actually become a better piano player? Yeah, you will. And the habit that he's referring to in this chapter is eat the frog, which I talked about in full in a previous video, another one that I'll link. But eat the frog is this idea of identifying your highest impact tasks and tackling them without hesitation. Be like Michael Blaine and get into the habit of practicing and training and experimenting and failing and getting back up again and pushing through the pain. Winning the day isn't about getting it right the first time. It's about getting it right eventually, says Batterson. I think that's an amazing quote. It's not about getting it right the first time or the second or the 50th time. It's about persevering until you get it right. You change something that you're doing to okay, that wasn't working, let's do it this. You know, you make small tweaks, you might make big tweaks, but whatever it is you do, you don't stop. You don't stop. This thing about getting back up after you fall, just last night, I was watching America's Got Talent, and there were these 3 girls from Ukraine who were an acrobatic act, and they were doing these crazy things, climbing on top of each other, and the one on the top is, like, doing the splits upside down, and the 2 below her are holding her, and they were doing this crazy thing, and they fell. They, like, tumbled down and fell, and everybody's gasping, "Oh my goodness." And you're thinking, "Oh my goodness, I guess it's it that's it for them," right? Like, they fell. Is the routine over? Are they done and they're not gonna move on? This is the very first episode of the season, and I'm thinking, "Well, I guess, maybe they're done." But they got back up and they did it again, and then they executed it. They succeeded in executing the thing, and you're thinking, "Okay, wow, that's crazy. That's awesome that they did that." And then, they got down from that, and then they did another maneuver. They did a whole other thing where they're climbing on top of each other, and one of them slinking up the other one in order to get on top of her and do this thing that was just craziness. It was like kind of above and beyond the risk factor of anybody else who had ever done acrobatics on the show, according to the judges. Like they were taking it to another level with the risks that they were taking. But when they're working on this next maneuver and the girl's at the top again and they're doing their thing and you start to see them shaking as they're holding each other and trying to keep it together, they fell again. They fell again. Like, whoa. They like, okay, well, they already fell the one time. Then they succeeded in redoing that maneuver, but now they're doing another one and they fell again. And it's like you're amazed by what you're seeing because what you're seeing is amazing even though they're falling, but you're still thinking, but they fell again, and like what is that going to mean, And are they done? Now are they going to give up and be done? No. No, they weren't. They tried again that maneuver and she got to the top and they fell again a third time. Like, on one hand, you're like, "Oh, that's so," you're just so disappointed for them, but you're, like, taken in by their grit and their determination to keep trying, and you wanna know who also thought that same thing? The judges, because the judges put them through. The judges were like, "You guys are amazing, and part of what's so amazing about you is that you don't give up. You're in front of all of these people, you're on TV, and, like, you fall, most people would have just been, "Oh, we messed up, I guess we're done," and they'd walk off the stage. But not these girls, they just wouldn't stop. And it paid off because they went through the next round. Now, I haven't seen the rest of it, so don't anybody type in the comments how that went because this whole season is over now and I'm only at the first episode. So don't anybody spoil it for me. But be like the Ukrainian acrobat girls and get back up when you fall down and get back up again when you fall down and get back up again when you fall down, even when you're on national TV and don't think you have any chance of making it through to the next round. The very fact that you have the guts to get back up and do it again might be the very thing that gets you to the next round. Watch this video next to learn more about achieving your dreams and your goals. And be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons so you don't miss a thing. Now off you go, girl. Don't give up and trust that your breakthrough is coming.